Welcome back to yet another mostly sunny day here in Zeeburg. It's funny how that works. We're gonna dive straight into action with a bit of transit-related work, more specifically an all-new tram stop here in the Stadium District. This is something that was requested several times by patrons and YouTube members on the previous episode, so I feel a little dumb for not implementing it on my own. But it's an additional stop in between the final stop. As you can tell, it sits down here by this housing project and the stop here by the train station. We've got this long bendy road that moves through some pretty dense developments. Yeah, it definitely needs an additional stop. And after we've added this stop, we're going to completely change the entire rolling tram stock of Zeeburg to a fully custom tram, which is gonna be a lot of fun. Anyways, a road builder is gonna come to our aid here because we can technically add a stop to this custom road segment I've built, but we can only add it in one direction because this median here is not wide enough to accommodate an additional stop. So we could only add one here at the sidewalk part. So what we're gonna do is open road builder, and I think I've got so many creations now that I'm just gonna keep the menu open and search for tram. And then I'm going to locate something that is about as wide as this configuration, but with a wider median, which I'm pretty sure I actually have available. Yeah, we've got this regular tram 2-lane road, so unfortunately I've not been super consistent with the naming, because if I was clever I would have added 5-meter median to the actual naming, but yeah, there you are. And this one is perfect because it's the same width thereabouts, because it just reduces the width of the car lanes a little bit, as well as the sidewalk to accommodate for the wider median. What we're gonna do then is use network tools to just get rid of this awkward node. We'll move that a bit further back, maybe here. Then we'll grab the picker tool. To grab the previous segment, we'll do a little upgrade here. Then we're gonna grab manipulation mode of move it, a lot of mods here, and just drag that out. And now we've got a perfect setup for a new stop in both directions. So let's see, we're gonna grab our trusty architectural tram stop shelter and just get that added. Now this should be enough to accommodate the current stock of trams we've got running, but the new stock we're gonna utilize offers a few more customization and possibilities in terms of like the length of the trams and capacity, which is gonna be really nice. And I'm gonna mainly use a shorter version. And that's basically it. It works. It's a very simple configuration, but utilizing Road Builder to just get some custom roads it's almost a bit of a hack, because it feels like your city is just more detailed because of it, but you are not actually doing any detailing. Anyways, I am expecting a ton of people to actually utilize this because, as mentioned, we've got some really dense housing units right next to this stop here. Now, moving on to switching out the rolling tram stock of Zeeburg, we've been utilizing this GVB tram set by Maestro for about as long as I can remember, and it's been serving the city really well. But we're starting to see some fully custom tram sets, like fully custom meshes on the PDX mod side, and I'm just super excited to try some of these out. So the easiest way to do this is to utilize the Better Transit View mod and move into the tram category. As you can tell, the percentage usage it's not terrible, but it's not great either. But I think in absolute terms, it's pretty cool to see the amount of people actually utilizing these lines. The ZTN3 line is still by far the busiest line throughout the entire city. Anyways, we're gonna click each line, and then we're going to select the Alstrom Cities 302 generic 5-car versions for each line. We may experiment with the 7-car version as well on some lines, but it kind of depends on the stops, because I've only really built the stops to accommodate the 1x4 GVB tram, so the 4 cars, whatever you call it. Meaning I'm not quite sure that all of the stops can actually accommodate some of the longer versions of these Cities. I'm probably pronouncing that wrongly, by the way, but yeah. We're making the full switch, and then we're going to look at our tram depot just to see all the action. And as you can probably tell, the Better Transit View mod is popping up with a few warnings now, but that makes sense. We're basically removing all trams to replace them with a different set. So let's have a look here. So we've got 2 depots throughout the city. We've got the Wilhelmspark depot, situated in Wilhelmspark. Yeah, makes sense. And we've got a secondary depot here in, well, this should actually be the Weststrand depot. So let's just get that renamed. And both of these are, well, almost at capacity. So we're gonna have to look into either committing to an upgrade or building a third tram depot in the future, which is always fun. We're gonna have to find the space for it. But let's see, have any of the... We've already got some of the new trams spawning. So here it is. So I'd be very open for suggestions for a specific color scheme for our tram lines, because we've got a really nice one going for all the trains, all the regional trains throughout Zeeburg, but we've pretty much just been utilizing this standard GVB color scheme for all the trams we've got thus far. But obviously now we can technically apply any color scheme we'd like to these trams here. And let's just have a closer look. As you can tell, they also have the VE module, so they're going to dynamically show the depot they spawn at and the line they are a part of, which is just a cool feature. Now, one option we did explore when we colorized the regional trains, or we had a bit of a discussion on it, was something that was more strikingly red, like this really deep red. We could do something like that. We could do something else entirely. I think this one looks really nice, actually. So I guess this would be my suggestion, having like a red tram network throughout the city. But yeah, let me know. I do enjoy this cream white, although it's probably just a little too much. It's got a little too much yellow in it for the tram here, but let's see. Yeah, that looks a little better, I think. Just pausing quickly to showcase something nice with this new tram set. The 5-car version of this Alstrom is actually shorter in total length than the 4-car GVB tram version, which again is just a reskinned vanilla tram set. But not only is it shorter in total length, but obviously the cars are much shorter as well, since there are 5 compared to the 4 here. And this is really nice because it means that for some of the more awkward turns throughout the city, it's gonna look a little more streamlined. I think it's gonna be able to navigate some of the tighter spaces a little better. Now, I was hoping a tram would actually make the right turn here to showcase this example, but that might not be the case. I think this highlights it pretty well because, as you can probably guess, the 4-car vanilla tram version looked a little awkward making this turn. Now, to be fair, it's only a turn that the trams have to make as they need to leave and enter the depot, so it's a very rare occurrence. It's only when they undergo maintenance, but it is looking a little weird, but a lot better now, I think. We're just gonna slap on the same color scheme on this fella here. Well, almost. It almost worked. And let's just have a look at some of the detailing. You can see the fan work here on the roof, which is just so nice. Obviously the, not the catenary, what's it called? The pantograph is dynamic as well. Will move up and down when it engages with the electrical wires, or when the tram starts reversing, it's gonna change as well. So just a really nice model. Let's grab a quick update from the new tram stop. Oh, yeah, right, okay. I mean, I feel even dumber now for not thinking of this, but shout out to you guys who were quick to react and let me know that you probably need a stop here as well. And yeah, we probably did. Alright, so the next little project is going to be a new grand museum for the city, as well as a bit of an overhaul around the central square here in the heart of the Alexandria district. So currently it houses a church, an old building with a modern addition, and this old structure as well. Oh, and some bike parking. And yeah, we're just gonna start by getting rid of all of this, because we're gonna replace it with yet another wonderful new custom asset from PDX Mods. This is the Landhaus Museum from Dresden. By Titan, and it is, I mean, you can already tell it's an amazing asset, but it's also quite upgradable, so I'm gonna need all the available space I can get. I want to make sure I don't just demolish, but instead relocate this particular building from the Office Evolution pack, which is also by Titan, because it's just every single asset in this pack is just an absolute win, and I've tried to just use like all of them. So I'm definitely gonna have to relocate it. We've got some slightly more boring stuff over here where it might be a good fit. So let's get rid of these two buildings, and we'll just do a just do a temporary relocation just to make sure I don't forget adding it in later. So it's gonna sit over here, maybe just have a little row house to flank it. We're just gonna get the new museum plop down with all the upgrades added because it's gonna give us a better idea of the overall scale of the structure. It features 3 upgrades and they're just so cool, I can't help but want to utilize them all. So we've got the eastern wing, which is not too big. Then we've got the western wing extension, which is to be added after the western wing, because if you don't, you've got kind of like a bit of empty. You're kind of staring into the void, I guess. So we're just going to make sure to add the western expansion and then this western wing. Obviously, we're going to have to tweak the location quite a bit, but as you can probably already tell, this is just an amazing looking asset. So the actual asset is just beautiful, but the detailing that kind of follows with it, like some of these custom props that are part of the asset as well, are just fantastic stuff. And I think the location is all right. It is surrounded by quite a bit of other Baroque architecture here in the city of Zeeburg, or more specifically here in Alexandria, so I think it's going to be a good fit. And we are going to revamp some of the blocks next to it to add just a bit more Baroque architecture. Before we get that far, we're going to need to make this thing fit. So I think something we can do is narrow the street on both sides of this new museum. So the first thing we're gonna do over here is we're gonna turn this into a pedestrian path, which obviously halved its width. We're gonna add a little roundabout as well. I think we are gonna get rid of this structure as well. I might reuse it somewhere else, but it just feels a little too old to sit on this particular location. It looked like a 15 or 1600 building, while the Baroque architecture is at least 100 years older, so that didn't make a total amount of sense. And we're gonna grab the asset here and we're just gonna shift it a bit further in. I don't wanna have to use better bulldozer to get rid of too many props because the detailing is just so nice. So if I can just take the detailing that follows with the asset, I'm gonna do that and then just kind of build on it. The next change is something I know some of you will appreciate quite a bit because I'm going to slim this road section down a little bit. So let's grab the 3+2 tram road we've got going on the opposite side of the intersection and just get that added in, and then we'll grab the 6-lane divided road. And let's see, this might require a bit of tweaking to get right. I don't think, is that gonna, yeah, I think I am maybe going to just center this and then we're just gonna freeform this so that there's a smooth transition to the slightly wider segments down here. And then we're gonna flip the direction of this segment, so let's see, so that we get our 3 dedicated lanes. Seems like we're completely messing up the tram network now, so let's just get a direct connection here. That should solve out, yeah, this issue. So this line, or the 2 lines utilizing this stretch of Willow Street, will now be working again. And it looks like the location here is just about perfect. We're clipping a bit into the road, so maybe we should just grab these segments here. We'll commit a double upgrade without any snapping, so that we can just bring this a little further down. And I think ideally I'd wanna kind of move this a little back from the road as well, just to give us a bit of an open square. We might even move it a bit further back. We can always just utilize the pedestrian road here just to ensure that we have the proper road connectivity. Shouldn't be too much of an issue, no snapping, just bring that in front of the building and we'll just add a quick roundabout. Or maybe a cul-de-sac, because then I don't have any structure here in the center that is going to poke through any surface detailing we do. Moving into better bulldozer, we've got a few props. These hedges here, I want to get rid of these so that we don't encroach on the sidewalk. But otherwise, that is just that is an amazing fit. I really think that's a nice fit. Now, if we just move ahead and just surround it with a little bit of Baroque architecture, we could maybe grab this. I think this is a level 5 building, which might be a little too much. We might drop that down to a level 4, or at least utilize a different version. This one here, let's just get a little more added in so that it feels a little more at home in this specific district here. We've obviously got quite a bit of detailing to do, but I feel like this area is just a little more coherent now, and there's a mixture of many different like time periods and eras here, but that's a general thing here in Zeeburg. As soon as you move beyond the old town, things really just start to change up, and there's like a lot of historical reasons for this, a lot of potential reasons. But the sharp transition from this part of Alexandria and then to Antoinette, which is obviously much more modern, has a pretty simple and very common explanation. It basically just became a target for Allied aerial operations in 1944 and 45, and so yeah, much of this has been redeveloped. I think the funny thing is though that the actual target wasn't Antoinette, it was this area, which is Neuhafen, which is now a redeveloped area, but it used to house some heavy industries. And the train tracks here, which have now been repurposed and elevated for passenger service, used to just cut through here at ground level and supply raw materials to whatever facility used to sit here. Something that was important enough to focus on it from the Allied perspective, at the very least. And with that bit of city history out of the way, let's move back to the museum and do just a little bit of detailing. Some surfaces, some props, some planters, and a bunch of trees and colorful bushes. Oh, and a quick little note, this is actually the Medieval Museum of Zeeburg, which is one of the largest dedicated medieval museums in the world. In our narrative at least, featuring a massive collection of a host of things, but one of the bigger collections of Byzantine or Eastern Roman Empire items. Fancy. This is now a Crusader Kings Cities Skylines crossover. Alright, so yeah, definitely not my best detailing work. I just didn't feel all that creative. So a couple of surfaces, a few props here, and a few functional parks as well, just to add to the overall attractiveness of this place. And it seems to be pretty busy. We've got some planters and a few trees out front as well, but we may redo this in the future, but it's good enough. So for now, it's just gonna stay put the way it is. And this building has many characteristics. If we click on it, we see quite a few citywide bonuses, specifically targeted some of our educational facilities. We also see one of the more awkward spelling mistakes in my YouTube career. So as someone who actually has a bachelor's degree in history, it's pretty awkward to misspell medieval, so let's get that sorted. Anyways, while this is a small, fun, limited scale build that did require a bit of browsing through PDX mods and a bit of planning on where to place it location-wise and how to integrate it, the next project has just kinda appeared out of thin air. Well, thin air or my terrible traffic planning decisions, because we've got a complete gridlock up here. To be fair, this is probably a temporary gridlock that wouldn't have occurred if I didn't respawn all the trams, but either way, I don't think this level crossing is a good idea. And this area entirely is actually just a little empty, given its pretty central location. Just casually mowing people down, right next to the police. right next to a Dodge Charger police car, no less. Yeah, let's get this mess paused, and I think we're gonna start by removing the road connections on either side. I don't think I can realistically make the tram overpass here much steeper, but I can probably use network tools to just make sure that the current incline is as smooth as it can be. So 4.9 isn't actually all that bad. I think we can manage to not only just kind of smoothen that out, but maybe grab this node here and elevate that just a bit more. Oh, the trams are acting pretty weird with all these changes here. We'll grab network tools again, see if we can smoothen this out once more. We are now sitting at 6, so definitely on the high end, but not terrible. And I think if we reduce the starting flatness a little bit, we might get just a little more wheel room. Yeah, below 6 for the entire stretch. That's fine. I might just have to make the road layout around the elementary school here a little complex, because I need a road to serve it, obviously, but I also need a road to move above the tram tracks, and I'm not sure the same road can do both due to how steep the incline would then have to be. So we're going to try grabbing the regular vanilla alley here, just branch off from this avenue, just make sure we touch the school here to get this connection in place, kind of framing the school, and then we'll need a separate road for this connection, which is pretty important, but not necessarily so demanding that we need more than just a single lane in either direction. That's what we're gonna try to either way. So we'll probably need about 6 or so, 625 to move above the trams. Yeah, we'll see how this looks. It's gonna be a bit of trial and error. So the clearance just about works, and I've managed to smooth out most of these road segments. What I need now is the road to just be a little more special, I think. Something like this is probably just a little more fun. I'm just gonna upgrade it, and then I think... Are we gonna keep the parking? Yeah, let's keep the parking on the outside here. I think that works just all right. We'll make sure to make this an overpass segment. And let's just have a quick close look. I think that's gonna work out wonderfully. Well, I certainly hope so, because what a mess it is currently. So I need some things to move. There's a bit of traffic movement, it seems, so that's good. But the trams, yeah, still not a whole lot. Alright, so I've just grabbed a mod that is going to completely revolutionize how I think about transit planning in this game. I'm pretty excited, if you can't tell, and it is specifically also going to help solve this terrible situation. A lot of vehicles just kind of bunched together because the core mechanics of the game seemingly cannot space them out. And as a result of this, it obviously makes your transit lines less effective than they could be, or in this case, completely ineffective. And this is after having manually deleted, yeah, they all disappeared. That is so awkward, because now they all have to respawn from the tram depot, which is going to cause new issues. So shout out to City Planner Place for highlighting this game-changing mod, because it is called Transit Timetables. So we're gonna start with opening better transit view. I'm just gonna toggle every line off, move into trams, and enable each tram line. Now this terrible bunching, which is going to cause despawns and inefficiencies and just make a future tram stock switch completely untenable, is just one part of the problem. The other issue is, of course, that I don't have a lot of data to go on as far as how I want to actually assign vehicles to my lines. The only thing I assume is that if this number is relatively high or is rising, I could add another vehicle. But since I can't guarantee that the vehicles will actually spread out across the line, which might, I guess, affect how people will do their pathfinding. I mean, if they have to wait at a stop for a long time, maybe they are gonna take their car the next time instead. It's all a little arbitrary, but this mod is gonna change everything. And we're gonna do the full comparison just to see its impact. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna open each line, and instead of just having this default setup configured, we're going to enable this option, the timetable option. If I click this, it allows me to specify the actual intervals between each vehicle that I want the route to achieve. Now it's gonna take a little time, but the mod is going to try to figure this out, and it is going to manually adjust the amount of vehicles on the line that is needed. So in this case, it does seem like 4 vehicles, which is what I also set for the line, is actually what is needed to achieve these numbers. So these are the default values, but I can configure them as I please. So in peak hours, which is morning rush hour and afternoon/early evening rush hour, it currently sets it to a goal of 8 minutes between each vehicle on the line to reach the stop, which is fine. I'm just gonna keep all of this default. In off-peak, which is all the other hours within daytime at least, it's gonna be 12 minutes. And during night, which is from 10 in the evening to 6 in the morning, it's a 30-minute interval. And here's just a quick overview of the mod settings you can configure right before we enable this across all the tram lines. I think the only change I've made here is that I have enabled the realistic travel time. You can look this up on your own if this is something you want to do. It feels a little more real, basically. But otherwise, I think most settings are completely default. So what I want to do now is I want to note the current amount of vehicles I have assigned. So that would be 4, 4, 9, and 4, because I think this one is being adjusted real time to accommodate for the fact that I have enabled timetables. And the reason we just saw this revert to 0 is, you guessed it, another despawn somewhere on the map, which is just horrible. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna move through each and every line. We're gonna enable timetable. I'm just gonna keep the default settings. We can do more tweaking later on. And this should dynamically change the amount of vehicles we have on each line, of course, in relation to the time. And while it's not obvious, it's currently 1 o'clock in the night. Before you write a comment suggesting that I should have enabled day-night visuals for this, this is a look at how nighttime visuals look here in Zeeburg. I don't think they look all that nice. I don't know why. Probably because I've configured the colors and the look so heavily to favor a midday cloudy look. So yeah, I'm gonna disable this again. No more postponing. I'm going to open photo mode and we're gonna set the simulation speed to the max the game will allow for, so that would be 8, and then we're just gonna see how this changes over time. Alright, so I've just paused the game with a couple of interesting observations. So it's nearly 8 in the morning and we can see how the mod has been drastically ramping up the amount of vehicles on each line. I know the numbers here don't look super drastic, but this red warning sign is telling us that we are over capacity. If we open up the ZTN2 line as an example, ideally, we need 17 individual tram sets on this line to be able to achieve the 8-minute interval during the peak hours. That's pretty incredible. And for the almost 10-kilometer long ZTN3 line, the figure would be 14, which is 9 more than currently available. ZTN4 would require 12. The 1 Express would require 14 as well, and the 1 would require 15. So these are some crazy numbers. And it's just super cool how valuable this data is, because it obviously tells us that we probably need more tram depot capacity, but we've already kinda established that. Like, we knew that before applying the mod. What it's also telling me is that I shouldn't keep the default values in place. Like, if we've got a line that is just not as busy as other lines, like the ZTN1 Express, I probably don't need 8-minute intervals during peak hours, or 12 minutes during off-peaks. We've got a bigger problem to handle before I do any manual interval adjustment though, and this one is probably just a design flaw. So I rant about the lack of game logic, but this one is probably a lack of logic on my behalf. Because this is just a bottleneck, and we're gonna see despawning here if we don't fix it. So one thing my monkey brain could fix is the fact that the ZTN1 line is kinda messed up here. It seems like this stop is being served twice due to some weirdness going on. Yeah, it was actually an issue with 2 stops on this stop for this line. I don't know how I managed to screw up so badly, but this should help a little bit because we don't have this weird reversing thing happening. The second and more substantial fix that is going to require more activation of my primate brain is the revamp of this stop. Since we do have 2 lines here, I think it would be a little better to have maybe 4 tram tracks, so we have more individual platforms and both lines don't share the same platforms. So we're gonna see if we can squeeze in Groony's 4-track tram station hub in this place. I think physically there's enough space, but it might not represent the height of realism because I will have, I think, to grab these buildings and maybe flip them so that they, so this guy faces this parking lot here. So, I mean, nobody saw that. It's just a quick little divine intervention. Let's see if we can fit in this guy. Oh, this is gonna get so messy. I wonder if there's can we road build our way out of this? I can often road build my way out of things, so maybe this one as well. Let's just try to redo the same configuration and see if we can change this with road builder to just get more tram platforms in place. All right, we're going for a 4-platform tram pedestrian street. So obviously we're just gonna need an additional tram track in either direction. And then I wonder if we need a median in between or if we can actually place additional tram stops now. I don't think I'm gonna do any more editing. I'm just gonna see if I can do that. Can I? So no, I'm gonna assume that the stops are applied to this tiled pedestrian segment. So I've added yet another tiled pedestrian segment of 3 meters to one side. So let's see if we can apply a stop out here. Oh, that does seem to be the case. Let's just do a quick test. 1 stop in one direction, 2 stops in the other direction. Can I now separate the stops from one of these lines? So this is the express one. Can it serve here? And this one, the outermost, that seems to work perfectly. So I think with this in mind, I'm gonna see if I can get rid of the 2 meter tiled median in the center, because this thing is getting just a little too wide, I guess. And we're gonna add a tiled pedestrian to this side as well. Unfortunately, it does. Oh, it all got fixed up. That's really nice. So I guess this configuration would actually work. So it's gonna have to stay chunky, but I mean, there is technically space. I don't have to move any of the buildings. I can even undo the bit of divine intervention. Whoa. Did you know that English is not my first language? Unbelievable, I know. Anyways, we've got space for 2 stops in either direction now to separate the lines. I do wonder if we need to... we can keep this as is, because hopefully it should allow 2 trams, well, 4 trams technically, to funnel into this segment at the same time. Just a final bit of configuration before hitting play and seeing all this in action. Hopefully this one works. I mean, I feel pretty clever setting up this solution. So hopefully. Of course, as I'm actually testing out the solution, there's not a lot of pressure on this segment for whatever reason, so it's hard to tell if it's actually working as intended. I need to be able to see 2 trams parked at 2 stops in the same direction, and I just haven't seen that yet, so yeah, we'll see. With the magic double stop now hopefully being a possibility, we've still got plenty of transit work ahead of us. One of those tasks is still adjusting the timetables to more realistic intervals, given the actual usage of each line. But I think before we do that, I'd actually like to just build a massive new tram depot. Because at this rate, we're gonna hit capacity no matter what configuration we do, unless we serve each tram stop with 1-hour intervals. So we might just get this one out of the way first, because it's a pretty sizable piece of infrastructure, because I'm gonna use the vanilla tram depot, which is pretty huge. The reason for this is that the Wilhelmspark depot is the compact depot with an upgrade, and the Weststrand depot is the same depot but without the upgrade. So they do look slightly different, although they're like the same base asset. But I think it's time to mix it up with the third depot. For a suitable location for the sprawling vanilla depot, I think we're going with the stadium district we've just built in the previous episode. We've still got big patches of land here ready to be utilized for a mixture of housing, public infrastructure and entertainment. And it's just a pretty good fit because we've already got tram tracks reaching all the way out here. Something I need to ensure though is that the tram tracks can realistically cross underneath the freight rail track we've got going through here. So what we're gonna do is we'll add a quick elevated segment, which, whoa, that is way too big. It's a good thing we've got network tools because I can not remove, but I can add an additional node right here. And then we can downgrade this section again, something like this. Then I'm gonna grab some terraforming tooling, the level terrain tool, just to get like an overall idea on whether the tram tracks can actually move beneath. We're gonna eyeball it. Yeah, very professional. But I think it's obvious that we can make that underpass. So to do that, we'll need to reconfigure this stop so that the trams don't have to make like an wait a minute, maybe we don't. So my first thought was to move this final tram stop onto this segment right here so that we could just curve the double tram segment underneath the overpass. But I think it's fine to actually keep it here so that it is clear of the path the trams trying to enter and exit the depot is going to take. It's a small thing, it probably doesn't mean a whole lot, but I think it's gonna make things maybe a little more fun, maybe even a little more complex. And you guys do know I enjoy that. So let's just get the actual double track that is going to enter the actual tram depot moving through here. And then we might even be able to squeeze in a small tram loop here. I mean, we are using a different tram asset now with the smaller cars, so it is more flexible in terms of some of these more bendy bits, these tight bends. So let's see if we can just do something like this. I'm gonna keep the stop segment here in place. It just looks fun. Maybe it has some use, not quite sure which, but yeah, I think this is gonna work. Quickly clearing away a bit of spruce and pine forest on this side of the freight track. Grabbing the vanilla tram depot. I don't quite remember the size of... Oh, yeah, it's sizable. That's for sure. Maybe we should just go for this actually. Yoink. Now we can immediately see trams start spawning from the depot despite no power and no sewage supplied. So I guess that doesn't really matter for the functionality of the asset. But this is obviously because, as we saw previously, there is a massive demand for additional tram vehicles to enter some of the routes. And currently I'm alright with them just spawning. We're gonna do a bit of configuration later. If anything, this is gonna give me a bit of an idea of how much our total capacity is now. But what I'm just quickly doing, as you guys can see, is trying to provide actual road access to the depot. Looking for something, maybe something just a little fun. Can we have maybe this connection? It's all a little complex, probably not planned to the best of my abilities, but that feels pretty realistic as well. Oh, I've got to flip this one around to get some parking on this side. There we go. And we'll use this road here as well, because it's just more interesting than the fully vanilla one. Now, I do feel a little dumb about this change, because the game flipped the tram stop from this otherwise complete segment to this little stop segment now that it's an actual T crossing. I'm gonna see if I can... What can I do here? Can I grab this segment here and try to branch off from this crossing? It's just a little complex already, but we're gonna give it a go. So we're gonna try something like this. Oh, that is very messy. And even after adding the garage extension upgrade, all 15 vehicles will just instantly spawn, as expected. But hopefully this is gonna change with some more realistic intervals and timetables. But before we get that far, let's just do a little bit of city building. Spend a bit of time fleshing out the road layout out here and adding some additional housing, maybe a few workplaces as well. I've managed to pause the game right before a ZTN1 and a ZTN1 Express tram is about to enter the station here at Empire Lane, so I am hopeful that both of them can stop at the same time, which does seem to actually be the case. It took quite some time to actually catch this in action, so I'm just super happy that it actually works. And I mean, apparently you can drive here with your camper wagon as well. Come on. Anyways, let's zoom out for a bit, move up to the Stadium District, which has increased its population from around 7,400 to 9,300. So a pretty sizable gain as we move across the freight track here. And it's really nothing fancy in terms of development. Obviously, the focal point is the relatively modern tram depot, and then I've just flanked it with some pretty modern residential units as well. There's a bit of elevation change here. Used better bulldozer to just kind of clean up the parking lot here, because obviously we'd have quite a few cars that would clip into each other. But I could maintain the parking lot here, that is a part of the asset, just kind of connecting it with a quick alley. And I did add additional parking to kind of offset what I removed here. But there's a lot of street parking out here in the first place, so I think we've got the parking situation covered. I've also added not just one, but 2 lakes, although this one is a major shallow lake on the far northeastern side. Pretty spontaneous decision. I didn't know what to do with this area, and I don't have any good ideas. So having a lake or any kind of like geographical boundary is just kind of nice. It makes the area feel less complete. For a fun final asset, I added this South Korean themed manufacturing plant of Fitbee, which is apparently a prestigious high-end bicycle brand. Pretty nice looking asset, I'd say, and a fun fit here as well. I don't think it's causing a ton of pollution either, despite being just a bit of noise pollution. So it's one of these industrial assets that is like, it's more high-tech geared or assembly, so it isn't super polluting, which is really nice because it's definitely something we need more of in the game. Moving on to our final bit of transit configuration, it's going to be changing some of the intervals, because we're still seeing a bit of despawning, unfortunately. When things get too hectic and too many trams are just kind of bunched up together, sometimes they'll despawn. There's apparently some kind of time cutoff where if they just sit still for too long, they're just gonna despawn, and it's so immersion breaking seeing that each and every time. So yeah, let's reduce the amount of trams here. I mean, currently it's caused by the fact that I just have the default setting for the timetables, and we're just gonna change all of that. And it's gonna be really fun to see the dynamic change in the amount of vehicles as we adjust this. So currently we're just outside rush hour, so keep that in mind. But these figures are going to be some of our guidelines. So any line that sees low utilization, I think needs an interval of 20 minutes during peaks and maybe 40 minutes in off peaks. And more busy lines are going to have 15 and 30 respectively for these figures. So let's start with that. We'll start with the CTN1, which is apparently the most busy line currently. So there's been a bit of a shift. It used to be the CTN3. But obviously the CTN1 serves the northeastern parts, and we have just expanded the Stadium District further. So there's been like a bit of a change here. So we're gonna adjust the peak intervals to 15, and we can see the vehicle count start to go down, I think, as I adjust all of these. So this doesn't change anything immediately, still 9 vehicles. But in off-peak, which is what we're currently in, okay, so that makes sense. If I do any changes to the peak intervals without being within that actual time frame, we're not going to see any immediate change. But since we're now in off-peak, we can definitely see a change as I start changing this to 30 minutes. I think I might keep night intervals the same as off-peak and just kind of treat that as one common thing. And this may be too drastic a change, especially during peak hours, but we'll have to wait and see. I don't think this percentage, the utilization rate, is all that high, or the line usage percentage. So we'll have to just kind of figure this out and monitor along the way. I think the cool thing about this mod is obviously that I feel like I can apply the data we have in a slightly more efficient way. And while ZTN1 is busy, the ZTN1 Express is, as expected, less busy because it's a little more restrictive in the areas it serves. So I think in this case we can change this to 20 and the off-peak to 40. And we're also going to adjust the nighttime frequencies to 40. And this lowered the amount of required vehicles to 3, which is in pretty sharp contrast to the current active amount of vehicles, which is 11. I'm gonna apply the same figures to the ZTN1 line, and then I'm going to treat the ZTN3 and 4 line in the same category as the ZTN1. So it's going to be 15 and 30 respectively for these two, but this one is also going to be 20 and 40. And as we see, ZTN2 drops from 12 vehicles in off-peak all the way down to 4. Now I'm kind of tempted to once again just let the simulation run for quite a while and then see how the figures change after all of this implementation. Hopefully we've got so few tram lines now, at least doing off-peak hours, that we won't see any despawning. But it is going to be interesting to see how it affects the line usage. So let's just test that out. So it's now 6 in the evening, doing evening rush hour, and these are the usage figures and vehicle counts. And it's pretty even across the board. I did see some of these percentages peak at like 45 or nearly 50% for the ZTN1 and ZTN3 line. And just once again, because this mod is so wonderful at highlighting the actual lines, the cool thing about these two lines is that it's kind of like it's technically not a south to north, it's more like center to northeast, and then the blue line kind of crosses across most of the remaining districts. So between these two lines, you've got like 75 or 70% of the entire city being covered. Unfortunately, the transit timetables mod doesn't directly spread out your vehicles across the entire stretch of the line, but it does seem to improve it compared to vanilla a little bit. I think the constant changing in the amount of vehicles, if you do have a different time interval set between peak and off-peak, for instance, kind of helps spread out vehicles. Because even though you'll see vehicle count ramp up when you enter peak hours, and those new vehicles are all gonna spawn in quick succession from your depots, you already got some vehicles out on the line spread out. So maybe there's like a bit of an improvement here. At least when I look at this visually, then like it's not perfect, but it's not terrible either, and we're actually seeing pretty decent usage. Looking at ZTN3, there's a pretty decent spread of vehicles across the entire line as well. So it's not too bad. So as we're wrapping up the episode, I just want to highlight that you can utilize the transit timetables mod for any type of transit. So we can utilize it for train lines as well. In Zeeburg's case, the tram network is by far the most extensive, and it was also the network that faced the most issues. But it seems like most things are now working pretty well. I haven't seen any despawning, and we're seeing some pretty decent line usage. So we're just gonna finalize with a clear overview of the changes and some of the decision making behind them, because I do realize that some of the changes I made earlier to the actual intervals might just feel a little random. This is also gonna highlight some of the many overlapping stops. So for instance, the ZTN1 and the ZTN1 Express. As you can probably tell, they serve the majority of the same stops. But there's just a bit of a difference in how far the Express one goes in the Stadium District and how far it goes beyond Old Town, where it also serves the Zeeburg Naval Hospital. So even though we've configured the more busy ZTN1 line to have 15-minute intervals during peak hours, due to the fact that there's also going to be vehicles on the ZTN1 Express line serving the same stops, then you will never really have to wait 15 minutes. We've got the very same type of overlap with the major routes that goes across town. So ZTN3 covers much of the inner city, moving west to the far east. And that is very much the case for ZTN2 as well, which could technically be an express line. It stops at the planetarium here, but then on the western side or northwestern side, it continues all the way up to Belmont. And these therefore follow the very same interval situation as with the ZTN1 and the 1 Express. So the ZTN3, the more busy line, has a 15-minute interval and 30, and the ZTN2 has a 20 and 40. Finally, we've got ZTN4. This line is pretty special because it shares a few stops with all the other lines throughout Zeeburg, as you can probably tell because it makes a right turn here, moving northeast through some of the inner city areas. Then it moves straight north, serving the suburb of Monterey, and it moves straight to the south, serving Neuhafen. This one was a little tricky to configure because both of its terminal stops at the very south and north are pretty far away from other tram lines. But ultimately I went with the 2040 configuration because the line usage is just pretty low overall. Okay, so that was a lot of transit nerding, which I hope at least some of you have appreciated. I'm in love with this mod, as well as this better transit view mod that we are also utilizing extensively. Generally, the modding scene for Cities 2 just seems to really be kicking off, and I'm just all for it. It's just wonderful to follow along with. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you're enjoying a nice summer or winter, depending on your location, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Goodbye.